Welcome on into the Warchant Report powered by Cummins. It's Clemson week. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by Tom Lang, executive producer of The Jeff Cameron Show and director of original content for Warchant.com, and the actual host of The Jeff Cameron Show. Jeff Cameron, you can hear him 1 to 4 o'clock right here on Warchant TV, as well as 93.3 FM terrestrial radio here in the Big Bend. We've got the big guns because it's a big game. And if you're going to be at the big game, you need to have reliable, quiet power in your back pocket. You can do that with Cummins. Check them out over at Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. You think you might need like a big RV to take advantage of Cummins, but no, man, you can be out on the streets, boots on the ground, tailgating behind a pickup truck back in the olden days. Portable generator, portable power stations. But if you do have an RV, they've got the world's most popular installed generators. Like seriously, they've done it the most. Cummins Lifestyle, follow on Instagram, see how you can step up your game. You want to get ready for the game. I'm sure you're all sick. You're sick and tired of hearing about Mike Norvell. Is he going to stay? Is he not going to stay? We're going to talk about it for a few minutes. But I'll tell you where you can probably be a little bit free from it. 9 a.m. on Saturday during the pregame show with Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang. I'm sure they'll talk much more about the actual football game, X's and O's, matchups, what looks like field side opportunity against the Clemson secondary maybe. I don't know. We'll have to find out, everybody together. We do start off, though, with the storylines that happened throughout the course of a week, guys, with Florida State, and it remains to be, the head coach and kind of his fate. Obviously, every single win, every single loss, it feels like we're going to do a reassessment of his future and how it should unfold, Jeff Cameron. So I kind of want to ask you, do you interpret that release 2 weeks ago from Michael Alford about, quote, as we continue to move forward this season, our comprehensive assessment of the football program will be completed at season's end? Do those words, any of the words in the release, mean anything different to you in the last 2 weeks? And ultimately, was this counterproductive to what you need in terms of setting stability and expectations for your football team moving forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have released anything if I wanted to wait to the end of the year and judge the landscape and the coaching carousel, which is insane, admittedly, especially if you were going to revamp the entirety of your athletic department, perhaps your football operations more specifically, and you wanted to restructure that, certainly analyze what has gone right and wrong in the Mike Norvell era and prior to that matter. For that matter, Florida State's been wildly inconsistent, so I'm not real sure I would have done that. However, they did, and of course that led to much consternation. I don't know that every week is going to be a referendum. It will be for some people who desperately want Mike to stay because, I don't know, they like his personality or whatever it might be. And for others, it doesn't matter at all. They're going to assume that by season's end, given the amount of losses accrued over the last couple of seasons, that a change is going to be made either way. I will only say that he has to, in my mind, win out in order to stave off, I think, the vast majority of this fan base wanting change. Let's just put it that way. And so in that sense, I suppose these wins matter. Beats the hell out of losing, that's for sure. At least on the surface, it's a better feeling if you're a Nole to get a win than a loss. And you're going to play the games either way, so you might as well win them. But as for now, I don't plan on having a daily or weekly referendum on Mike Norvell. I think most people feel like he's fighting for his job every week. And, if he doesn't win out, it doesn't seem likely that he would, that a change will be made.
Tom, has anything changed in the last 2 weeks? Is this a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't? We're being told we're going to figure this all out at the end of the season. Yet, it's hard to, even though we know where the goalposts are, it's hard to really embrace and accept that when every single week you're emotionally invested in seeing how your best and most favorite team is performing. Your thoughts on, I guess, that release and where we're at right now, 2 weeks following it?
Yeah, at the time, I thought it was kind of silly to put a timestamp on when you're going to make the decision, and I still do. So there's not much that's changed, because if you think about it, whether it was the intent of the writers of the statement, Michael Alford, or not, when you say it's going to be completed at season's end, it feels like, hey, guys, we're on it. This is what they're saying. Hey, guys, we're on it. By the end of the year, we're going to make a call on this thing. And at the end of the year, you can expect to get our verdict on what's going on. And yet you're still seeing in reality, I know when I was on the postgame show last week with Gene Williams, he said had the result gone the other way, he had a bunch of coaching nuggets that he was ready to fire off because there were some things that were happening behind the scenes. So if Wake Forest had won, Florida State may have made a decision, or there might have been leaks of a decision that was forthcoming in the next 24 or 48 hours. So is it really at season's end, or could it happen from a week-to-week standpoint? That's where also just kind of in what we do, I'm going to be on call on Sunday unless the news is good for Florida State on Saturday night. And that's where I agree, Jeff. I don't want to have a day-to-day or a week-to-week referendum, but I think effectively speaking, we're all going to be watching this game, at least from a fan standpoint, hoping that Florida State wins. But if Florida State doesn't look great this weekend and they lose, I think we're all going to wonder if a change is coming, which is not at season's end, but it's in the beginning of November. So I don't know that my opinion has changed. And I think week to week here, Clemson, however the result goes, Virginia Tech, NC State, we're all going to be kind of looking over Michael Alford's shoulder to see what he decides to do the day after those games.
Speaking of the coaching carousel, somebody who's now off of it, Hugh Freeze over at Auburn, I bring him up because when I was in Mississippi, Jeff, he mentioned that as a head coach, he could only really go to the well 2, maybe 3 times a season at the emotional level of like challenging players emotionally, rivalry game. Like maybe that's the aspect where you can kind of tap. You can't keep trying to go to the well with, trying to tap into their emotions of these 18 to 23-year-olds. So I ask you this, the performance against Wake was really impressive, man. That's a good Wake Forest team. I don't think they're equipped to come back from 2 scores down. So when that happened, it was kind of, curtains, but you got up on them early, you took advantage and you didn't look back. So was that an emotional response to all the outside noise? Was it a one-off, or do you think this team actually learned in the off week better practice habits and how to execute better on game days, and maybe they're just a little bit healthier too?
I thought they started sluggishly. I don't think it was an emotional reaction. I thought, it's nothing at the end of the first quarter there. You really kind of benefited from Wake stubbing their toe early on, a couple of mishaps and some penalties to throw in there. Florida State did a good job of taking advantage after the big play from Deuce and getting down there and punching it in. I think you look back on that game and it's impossible to rewrite the script. But if Florida State doesn't get up 7-0, doesn't get up 14-0, I wonder how it would have gone. I don't know that they were emotionally charged. I think that it was afterwards that they decided to go to bat for their coach, and I would have asked all of those young men, where was this fight at Stanford? He was already in peril at that point. Where was the effort when you needed it? The season's a wash now, guys. I think they have a chance to be much more emotional for this game because I have a feeling at night on the road against Clemson, coming off of a win for Florida State, that maybe they're re-engaged. Perhaps now you'll see some of that emotion. I don't know that it was really an emotional win. I think it was a matter of Wake Forest is bad at quarterback. They got behind. There were some silly penalties and turnovers for them. And the next thing you know, Florida State had this thing avalanche. They did a good job of taking advantage of those opportunities. And they were physical, but I don't think Wake, as you just said, is equipped to come back. Frankly, Wake and Florida State are kind of similar in this sense. I don't think Florida State's equipped to come back with a big deficit, given the offense that they run and Tommy's inability to run around. I think they have to play from within touch, either have the lead or be within a score or so in order to stay in football games. So it'll be paramount on Saturday night that they be in this game into the second quarter, up 7, within 7, something like that, in order for this to be a good game in the second half.
Number 1 offense in the country, not equipped to come from behind, though.
No.
How does that work?
Well, first of all, those are some hollow stats, and we could go through all of this. I don't. You've watched it. I've watched it. There are a lot of empty yards in Florida State's offense. I think that offense can be very good when Tommy Castellanos can run. He presents all kinds of problems. The offense is predicated around his ability to run to open other things up. I don't think that's what this offense is. Obviously, they got fat off of 2 games against foes that were ill-equipped, and they put up mountainous numbers that are going to help this offense remain in the top 20 all year long. From an efficiency standpoint, it is not that, certainly not in the passing game. And that's the other answer that I'd give you is that go look at the numbers within the passing game. You can look at yards per play. You can look at any number of efficiency ratings. It's not great. If he can run, you set everything else up, including the passing game. But if he can't, they can't get behind. They're not a drop-back pass team.
Tom, you look at things a little bit more analytically than most, so it's good that you're on this week's panel. But did you think that game was like an emotional kind of rallying around their coach? That's why they came out and played, after a little bit of stubbing their toes, that they actually were ending up finding their sea legs, if you will, because they were playing for Mike Norvell and for themselves, too, to a large degree because of everything that they're hearing on social media? Or do you think this team is, maybe – that one more week of health, Tommy's just a little bit more agile. They're just a little bit more confident. They've developed some better habits maybe off the bye week and can carry it forward.
I largely agree with Jeff about the first half, but it could have evolved into an emotional moment for them because it did happen. I think the beginning of the game, first quarter plus, is Florida State kind of ducking and wondering if they're going to take a haymaker or not, and the haymaker never came. And so at that point, the first deep pass to Deuce Robinson, I think it was the second catch of the game, is something where everybody can exhale because now they got goal to go. Struggled a little bit there, but then they punch it in, they score. Next thing you know, they have another chance to go down the field. Sam Singleton punches it in. You're up 14-0. Okay, now you're starting to exhale. You're getting a little bit of momentum. You do come up empty to start the first drive in the second half, third quarter. But then once Wake doesn't do anything with it and you go up 21-0, at that point there might be a growth and there might be some emotion that they can rally around and build upon for this Clemson game. I don't know that they got off the bus or went through the legacy walk and ran out of that tunnel emotionally charged to respond for Mike Norvell at the beginning of the game. But I think by the end of it, they might have built into something that allows them to get on the charter flight this weekend to go to Clemson and feel a lot better about themselves, if that makes sense. I think they were kind of ducking and covering in the beginning of the game, but then it built into something that maybe they can draw off of for this roadie at Clemson.
That would be called front running. If they get a lead, then all of a sudden they care and they're invested and they're emotional.
I love when Jeff's here, everybody. We got two more segments with the big dog here, everybody. Clemson's 3-5. They haven't beaten a Power 4 team in Death Valley in like over a calendar year. This is a absolute gimme layup for the Noles, right? Right? Let's look at the matchup right after this on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. A rebuild is in progress. Whether it's one of the top brands in college athletics or your adventurous spirit, we all need to recharge from time to time. So trust Cummins, the brand that's been a global power leader for over 100 years. Featuring the Onin line of portable power generators and power stations, tackle any project in your own climb to the top. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram to see the latest builds from the Cummins team and to get inspiration for your next outing. And get your questions into the Renegade Express mailbag. Be the one that's generating discussion to earn entry into the December grand prize drawing for a portable generator or power station from Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back. Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle, Instagram. Follow it, everybody. Follow us at warchant.com. All the great work over there for only $1 for a week and a year subscription to The Athletic. Yeah, that's right. On 3, The Athletic. You're a college sports fan. That's the best combo out there. What's better, though, than $1 a week is nothing for a whole year. If you're a student at the esteemed Florida State University, home of Spanx founder Sarah Blakely, BTW, you can get a whole year subscription to warchant.com if you email support@warchant.com from your FSU.edu email address. It's that simple. We're not going to ask you for a credit card. No strings attached. Piece of cake. Sign up. You'll see. Matt LaSerre, he is a student formerly at Florida State University. So everybody on the screen was too. Funny how that all works. The love of the school never goes away. Will the intensity of the rivalry between Clemson and Florida State not go away despite a team that's at 500 and then the other one 2 games below 500? And that team was favored to be in the playoff after all. Matt LaSerre caught up with Larry Williams at Tiger Illustrated to give us the lowdown.
Obviously, everyone loves to talk about quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik was a little banged up, didn't play against SMU, did play last week. How's he kind of looking there? Is he back to 100%, or what do you think is going on?
Definitely not 100%. He has what I believe is a high ankle sprain. He's hobbling around some, not as much of a running threat as he was before. But this might sound weird. I think the injury maybe slowed him down some in a positive way in terms of where before, when he's fully healthy, he might be quicker to flee the pocket. Now I think he looked more methodical to me in sort of going through his progressions and being more patient, kind of because he had to. Yeah. But that said, he was much more much more slippery than I thought he would be. I thought a less mobile Cade Klubnik was going to be some trouble against Duke's defensive ends. So they did a much better job of blocking, and I think he did a really good job of sort of maneuvering back there in the pocket.
Also, and then, to go on to the rest of the offense, Bryant Wesco went down during that SMU game and is out for the season. Clemson's leading receiver. How has that affected the offense, and what other weapons have had to step up now in his absence?
Well, of course, it's a big loss because he was their top weapon outside. Well, I said top weapon. Statistically, you could make that case, but Antonio Williams is right up there. I mean, slot guy, just playing really fast and just has a lot of burst. When that guy gets in the open field, he does a lot of damage, whereas Wesco was probably more the deep threat, which of course they miss. But I think they still have they still have plenty of options outside. TJ Moore, a fellow sophomore with Wesco, had a big catch and run late against Duke. He's really sort of blossoming. I guess if he can, still needs to improve at catching the ball. He's had some drops in recent games, but I don't think they have a shortage. I think the biggest thing is kind of a basic of offensive football, and that is, man, if you can just establish the run, it just makes everything else so much easier. They could not run the ball at all against SMU, and it made life hard in the end because they couldn't cash in with touchdowns after driving the ball between the 20s. And so they were able to run it a lot more effectively against Duke. Gideon Davidson, the freshman tailback, really had by far his best game. He played a lot more against Duke, and you're seeing what made them so excited about him. Until last week, it was basically all Adam Randall, and that was kind of a problem. You know, he's a converted receiver, and they just needed to have more of a rotation. I don't really, you know, I think people are sort of confused as to why it took so long. Obviously, when you have a first year, a true freshman running back, pass protection and things like that are going to be an issue to where you're going to be kind of timid in some situations to put him out there. But there's also the argument of, man, if he's one of your best playmakers potentially, you got to figure out a way to get the guy the ball. So my point is, Randall, I think in tandem, those two can be a really good 1-2 punch. They were against Duke.
Yeah, and moving on to the defense, this seems to be the spot making the most headlines for Clemson. Normally, the Clemson defense is one of the best in the country, and this year it hasn't been that. So what have kind of been the bright spots, or what do Florida State fans need to watch out for when it comes to this defense?
Watch out for that secondary, which has just been getting torched lately. The safeties, they got big problems at safety. And if I were Florida State, I'd be most optimistic about Castellanos and all the eye candy that Gus Malzahn throws at defenses, you know, sort of taking advantage of the very obviously legitimate threat Castellanos is with his legs, with all the boots and such, the horizontal eye candy. Clemson's back end has been very interested in that candy so far this season. You know, I think Clemson's defensive line is formidable in general. They're not as they haven't been elite, like consistently elite, which was expected going into the year, and that's been confounding, I think, to a lot of folks because they definitely have the talent in Peter Woods and T.J. Parker and Devontae Capehart. But, you know, I think they've been more disruptive the last couple of games, and so that's really the sort of the most fascinating part of this matchup to me is, you know, a Florida State offense that is really good at running the ball. You know, who's going to control the line of scrimmage? Because kind of similar to what I was talking about with Clemson's offense, you know, establishing balance to set up the pass and stress the defense. I think if Florida State is able to run it consistently, particularly between the tackles, as they did so well against Wake Forest, that's trouble for the back end of this defense.
Thank you again, Larry, from Tiger Illustrated coming on. Again, guys, if you already have a Warchant subscription, you are able to access Tigers Illustrated. You can't talk on the message boards, and as I've said before, it's probably a good thing for you not to interact on there, but it's if all the inside information, Larry and his guys will have it over there if you want to learn more about Clemson going into this game Saturday.
Thanks to Matt and Larry for that. Thanks to Larry for being on the podcast earlier in the week. All right, let's get to it. You know, we had Terrence Knighton on Tuesday, Jeff, and Tom, and I wanted to ask him this, but they wrapped him up early. I just feel like in the NFL, if you're a defense that gets gashed for like 250 yards on the ground, I feel like the next week, for whatever reason, they always bow up. Like, right, they end up holding their next opponent to like 80 yards rushing. But when you're at this point of the season, and I've seen some of the Clemson games, that secondary does not seem to be coming around anytime soon. What have you seen on film maybe from that Clemson secondary that you think Florida State will have clear and present opportunities come Saturday night in Death Valley?
It's stunning what you see. I'm sure it's how people felt watching Florida State in the mid-2000s going, that uniform, that helmet is capable of this? It's not one thing, Aslan. It's a bunch of little things that add up to just putting your hands on your head and going, oh, no, they're going to do this again. So I watched from start to finish the SMU game and then the Duke game, those two recent games. I don't think Boston College or North Carolina was going to give me a good picture of what was going on. You've got problems in zone coverage, little basic concepts like flooding. They don't know what to do with it. In man coverage, the basic mesh rail, which Florida State's had some trouble with, Clemson has major issues with. I'm seeing effort problems, specifically with one safety, number 7, Barnes. He goes for a jog. It's like Shaheem Brown against Miami last year on steroids. So they've got effort issues. What's very frustrating if you're a Clemson fan watching the secondary is that their front against the run is really good. They are stout against the run. So all you got to do is the basic bare minimum of communicating, being aligned, knowing your assignment, rallying, and tackling. If plays are at the line of scrimmage for Clemson, if plays are in front of them, they will rise up and they will make those plays. But if anything gets downfield, you're seeing guys catching blocks, playing timid. You're seeing communication issues with the secondary at the corner to safety or safety to linebacker levels. If Florida State was a traditional passing offense, I would feel really good about this matchup, but Gus is going to have to step outside of himself a little bit to take advantage of these situations. I think Deuce is going to operate well, but you really need to see some things for Randy Pittman or Squirrel White or Boggs or McCoy, I think, for Florida State to take full advantage of what is a mess of a secondary. I was kind of laughing at Dabo this past weekend, watching him go nuts on the sidelines on that secondary. After watching play for play, I get why he does it. I'd be furious, too, if I was a Clemson fan watching them.
Awesome insight. Thanks, Tom. That's great. Jeff, Florida State's got the number 1 offense in the country, but I feel like this Clemson offense, I might rather ride and die with them on a Saturday night, especially when it's at home. Cade Klubnik is working with a high ankle sprain. They don't have Brian Wesco any longer, but they still do have some weapons. Is this Clemson offense, are they still going to be able to put up these gaudy numbers that they were able to against a good Duke team? Or do you think, maybe this offense will I don't want to say run into a buzzsaw against this Florida State defense? Because I don't think buzzsaw and the Florida State defense have been using the same sentence in 12 years. But how formidable do you think this Clemson offense could be on Saturday night for Florida State?
Well, Antonio Williams is a projected first-round draft pick. They've got players on offense. Aslan Klubnik, when he's good, is really good. If he's going to be healthy, obviously he slung the ball over the lot against what I think is a good Duke defense. That was interesting. That game kind of got away for both sides on defense. To Tom's point, real quick, I just want to add, they have 3 projected first-round draft picks on this defense for Clemson. Can I just add that in there? 3, and 4 in the first 35 picks. It's insane to watch that. I know you're asking me about Florida State's offense against Clemson's offense against Florida State's defense. Look, I think the inconsistency has got to drive Clemson fans nuts. They've had 2 games this year where their offense looked to be unstoppable. They've also had 2 games this year where they look completely inept and the others have been middling. So it's been very strange to kind of watch them. I know one of the problems they've had is really creating an identity. And I think that when you listen to Clemson insiders talk about They believe that the offense abandons the run too easily. They don't think they have a consistency or an identity. We can all relate to that. We've been around that before here watching Florida State in the past. It can be frustrating. As far as Clemson's offense goes, offensive success rate is top 25 this year. Their passing game has been up and down. They're in the top 50, but not top 40. And then you look at them when they run the ball. If they stick to running the ball, they're top 15. Now, they've had some games, again, where they've abandoned it. It depends on whether or not they'll remain true to who they should be, which is, I think, a downhill running team and then throw off a play action because you have an elite receiver that can get behind a defense once you walk that safety up. We'll see, but they have not found their way. This speaks to an overriding problem at Clemson, which I think is a culture problem. I think they've got issues. When Tom's describing to you about guys not giving effort, we know all too well what that looks like on the heels of 2-10. And anytime that's happening, it's pervasive throughout the entirety of a team, not just one side of the ball. When you have effort issues and it's week over week and game over game, and you've got NFL football players running around that field on both sides of the ball, then you've got real issues as far as a tune-out of the head coach, the coordinators, They're not playing for each other. They're not consistent. Sometimes something sparks them, and all of a sudden you see them lock in, and that talent rises to the surface. But predicting what they're going to be every week has become very difficult. I went back and looked at all of their games, condensed games. I didn't go back and watch all of them through the entirety, but I watched their condensed games knowing we were going to do this. And there are times they look like they can just hum. And there are other times where you're going, what's going on? He just absolutely threw that into the ground, or the receiver drops an easy pass. It's going to be a 30-yard gain. You see guys loafing sometimes. You don't see completed blocks. It's a very strange team. To me, it speaks to culture issues.
It's the last part of the show. Coming up after this gets the predictions. That's what you're all here for. We'll do that next, right here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Coming soon. On the field, a resurgent Florida State football team, we all hope. And off the field, the Cummins own and QG 7000i DF. The DF standing for dual fuel. That's right, a generator that can run on gasoline or liquid propane. Available later this year, the own and QG 7000i is a great fit for your Class A or fifth wheel RV. In addition to the versatility of dual fuel sources, the QG 7000i delivers world-class engineering from Cummins that results in low vibration, clean exhaust, and electric fuel injection for better efficiency and less maintenance. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for more information and be the first to know when the QG 7000i drops. Cummins, a world power leader. Welcome back. It is the Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. After the game on Saturday night, you're going to want instant thoughts, reaction. Come to us at warchant.com and Warchant TV. Tom Lang, Gene Williams, live post-game show 10 to 15 minutes after the conclusion of the Florida State Clemson game. Hop on, get involved. You can call in. You can just, you can lurk and just watch. You can type on in the YouTube chat. All sorts of mediums available to you to sound off after, again, fingers crossed, hopefully a second consecutive win for Florida State on Saturday night. Gene Williams, he runs this show over at warchant.com. He and his army of dudes back at the website have their picks for us. So without further ado, Gene, take it away.
Florida State hitting the road to go to Death Valley this Saturday. This is really weird. Florida State's 500 and Clemson's 3-5, the two teams that should be dominating the ACC, and they're just trying to stay out of the bottom right now. Surprising start to the season for both of these teams, but comes down to this is a huge game for obviously both of these programs and both of these coaching staffs. I don't know on FSU's perspective. I'm convinced at the home win against Wake Forest last week. I still have a hard time getting rid of the Pitt and Stanford memories in my mind. I know Clemson was awful losing at home to Duke. Dabo completely lost it. Maybe the players have given up on him, but still FSU is going on the road where Mike Norvell has not played well, especially late. His teams have really struggled there. So I got to give the edge to the home team here, and that is Clemson, even though I think the line's only about 2.5, 3 points. But let's go Tigers 27, Noles 24.
What's up, sports fans? Got another pick for you, so go to the sports books as soon as you see this. Look, I love the way they played on Saturday night. I just think this is a bad matchup. I still don't think Tommy's healthy. I don't think the running game will be as good as you think. And while Duke lit up Clemson's secondary, and I think you have better receivers than Duke, you don't have a better throwing quarterback. That guy made some really good throws and stood in the pocket. Tommy not being himself gives me pause. And plus, Clemson's offense looks like it's really good. And their backs are against the wall, and they're wounded and all that. So I'm going to say Clemson 33, Florida State 23 is my pick, and I hope I'm wrong.
I really have no idea what to expect in this game. I'm not sure how anyone could. Neither of these teams is trending in the right direction, even though Florida State did beat Wake Forest at home. It's a whole different story to go on the road and beat any team, let alone a team that's more talented than you. I am probably pretty jaded because I went to the Stanford game in person, and I went to the Virginia game in person, and I went to all those other road games in person last year that Florida State didn't win. So it's been a long time since I've gone on the road and see this FSU team leave happy. So for that reason, it's hard to predict them, even though Clemson's kind of a mess right now as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Tigers to win at home, 35-24.
So I think this game is going to be pretty high scoring. I honestly think if Florida State can establish the run, they're going to be in a really good spot here because I don't think Clemson will be able to cover the shot plays to Deuce Robinson or Mekhi Danzy down the field once that gets opened up by establishing a run with a Sam Singleton or an Usman Chroma or even a Gavin Sawchuk. So In general, though, I think Clemson's offense has been rolling, and I think they're probably going to keep rolling. Cade Klubnik has looked good. The good part is that his ankle is a little messed up, so you're not going to see as many QB runs as you have in previous games with Florida State's defense. With that being said, I am taking FSU to win here just because I think Clemson's defense is too weak to cover, again, a Deuce Robinson, a Mekhi Danzy, a Squirrel White. So I'm going to go Florida State 31, Clemson 28.
Thanks to the gentlemen for their picks. Thanks to our friends over at Cummins for keeping us powered on this program. Give them a follow on Instagram. Cummins Lifestyle. It's all one word. You need portable, reliable, quiet power when you're going to be out in the outdoors. Cummins has been doing it forever. They've been doing it well, and their stock price reflects that, guys. Jeff and I have got cool vests. Should have probably negotiated for a share or two, Jeff, but maybe next time when negotiations come up, and I'll see if they can throw in a vest for Tom too. We'll see how it goes. But give them a follow. Cummins Lifestyle over at Instagram. All right, 7:30, Florida State taking on Clemson. That if you would have told me that, 2 months ago, that's the way the game would end up being as a night game in Death Valley. Like, all right, this is awesome, Tom. You got two rivals, ACC teams, clawing, fighting for a spot in the college football playoff. That is not the case. It's not the case. But in other ways, it might be just as hardly and bitterly contested. So how do you think Saturday falls for Florida State when they take on Clemson in Death Valley, which, again, they have not been a Power 4 team in that stadium, believe it or not, Clemson, in like over a calendar year?
Yeah, this is another one of those situations where the home fans, if it turns bad, are going to boo and turn on their own team, and that's what could potentially happen. I just wonder if Cummins could provide either of these benches a generator to bring their own guts if adversity strikes either one of those two teams. I know. But if either one of those two teams gets behind, Florida State or Clemson, I want to see if they do have anything in the tank to fight back. And I don't know who that's going to be. This is an extremely difficult game to handicap because I think Florida State feels better about itself than Clemson does in this moment, as strange as that sounds. Clemson has a really, really hard time getting off the field when they have to get off the field. Against Duke, for example, key third downs and fourth downs, they panic, they bust coverages, they blow coverages, they lose one-on-ones. I think if Gus is willing to throw the ball and dial up some misdirection passes, Florida State's going to break open offensively and see Clemson shut it down again defensively. I'm actually taking Florida State here this week. I've been wrong every week, so sorry if I jinxed this, but I'm going to take Florida State winning this game 27-20 over Clemson.
All right. Jeff, how do you see this one shaking out? You'll be doing the pregame show at 9 o'clock on Warchant TV with Tom Lang. Give us a little preview of your thoughts.
Matchups are all wrong for Florida State. If they had any kind of a sophisticated passing game, they'd have a chance to exploit this Clemson team. They don't. They won't. They'll get beat 38-14. I don't think it's very competitive if Clemson cares to be there. We'll see if they do. It is a fair thing to retort my prediction by saying Clemson hasn't shown that willingness to be there necessarily, and particularly at home, as you pointed out, on defense almost all year long. But they also haven't gone against what I think is kind of a rudimentary passing game. So I'll say this. I don't like it. I don't like the matchup for Florida State at all. I think it's going to be a tough one. I'll pick Clemson to win. And of course, they'll rally around at night, the idea of beating Florida State, and then Dabo will tell everybody how great he is. But I'll go 38-14 Clemson.
Man, I took it on the chin for all of us, though, man. I was the sacrificial lamb for all the angst of picking against everyone's favorite team last week. So
I may be that guy this week. It could be me. That's fine.
That's fine. I will not be intimidated, Jeff Cameron. I will not be intimidated by these people. It is crazy. Just to your point about them not being able to get off the field when they have to, Tom. I mean, I was about to go 34-24 Clemson, but maybe he's a little bit tighter than that because, I just think Florida State should be able to move the ball on them. I know they don't have a sophisticated pass game, as Jeff said, but they create enough confusion that when you don't have good communication on the back end, there'll be some busts. I don't think enough busts, though. I'm going to go Clemson 28, Florida State 27. Don't ask me how they get to those numbers. I just spit it out as they come to me. They cover, though. They cover. Great teams cover. Great teams covered. Mike can put that on his pros list when they do their whole audit of the comprehensive review of the team after this season. This game, though, a lot riding on the line, believe it or not. So stay connected to warchant.com, the Jeff Cameron Show throughout the week. Wake up Warchant. Again, the pregame show with Jeff and Tom at 9 a.m. There will also be a postgame show with Gene Williams and Tom Lang 10 to 15 minutes at the conclusion of the game. So dial in, plug in with Cummins and warchant.com as we get you ready for game day. For all of our staff over at warchant.com, as well as the guys on the screen, Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang, I'm Aslan Hudjavani. Thank you for watching the latest edition of the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.